The best advice I was ever given for playing with other musicians is this: simply focus on making everyone else sound great. It's as simple as that. Now, there is a lot more nuance and detail that we can talk about with this, but I think actually probably the best way to get into it is just to tell the story of how and where this happened. So this actually came up in one of my regular guitar lessons with the fantastic jazz guitarist Mike Outram. And I used to go over to his house when I lived down in London pretty regularly and sit in his front room and have a lesson. And something that we do a lot in the lessons, and particularly to warm up as we did this time, was just to play a little duo piece together. So play a jazz standard, I'd take a solo, he'd comp for me, so accompany me, and then the other way around. Mike would take a solo and I would be the one playing chords behind him. And on this particular occasion, he stopped me pretty much straight away and just pointed out that I was trying to do way too much. I was way in my head trying to make it all about me. So I was worried about, was my chord playing good enough? So I was trying to play all sorts of crazy voicings. I was trying to play really cool rhythms, just trying to make sure that what I played was really interesting. And he made the point that actually, that's not my role at that point. I was thinking all about me, and what I needed to be doing for the music was thinking about him, how to make him sound good. That's when he came up with this quote, and probably said it to a lot of people. The number one thing when playing with others is focusing on making them sound good. So that was, a really extreme example in that case. I was doing stuff that really wasn't helpful and getting in my own head. But why does it help so much? Why is it so useful in these cases anyway? And I think there are a number of things we can look at here, and it's kind of helpful to just pull them apart and see what they all mean. So the first bit is that this is thinking very big picture rather than, tiny details. And in practice, it can be really helpful to get into focusing on the details, improving small things. But performance is really all about the big picture. Is how does that whole experience come across to the audience? So when my focus is on, I want to make the other musicians sound great, I'm thinking just big brushstrokes, and that's going to give me much better results in what I'm playing and what we as a group are playing than if I'm in my head trying to think about small details. So time for small details is in the practice room, way before you're actually performing. Once you're actually out there, something that helps you to just step back and look at the big picture is really good, and this particular piece of advice does exactly that. Now, a second thing that's really helpful about thinking in this way, making the other musicians sound great, is that it's focused on the outcome that you do want to achieve. It's really easy to go into performances, playing situations, and think, oh, I really hope I get this right. I don't want to make a mistake. I better not mess this up, and think about the things that you don't want to happen. And that's just a really bad way of doing it. First of all, it makes them a bit more likely to happen anyway. And secondly, it's taking you off what it is that you are focusing on, in this case, sounding great. So thinking about the other musicians, making them sound great, is keeping you focused on positive as well as that big picture stuff. So another really important thing that thinking about making the other musicians sound great is that this takes the focus off yourself. And when we're performing and we're really obsessed with what do others think of us, am I playing well enough, all that sort of thing, that again, it really tends to impact our performance. And it's both in terms of how well we play and also how much we enjoy it. So there's this thing called the spotlight effect, where we think that people are always judging us and paying a lot of attention to us, and actually they're not so much. So interesting research shows that we massively overestimate how much this is happening, and it's not good for us. So a way of thinking, a mental model, if you like, of I want to make the other musicians sound great, is taking that spotlight off you, putting it on how can I make other people sound good, and that tends to lead to much better performances. Now, speaking about having the spotlight on you, it feels a bit weird to do this, but I would love it if you just click the like button on this video if you're finding it useful. And in the spirit of today's video, that is not about making me look good because I got lots of likes. Actually, it's because when you like this video, it makes YouTube more likely to show it to other people, so hopefully other people can see it as well. So I hope I'm thinking here about how can I give other people benefit rather than all about me. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. There's another thing that I think is really helpful about this framing of what do you think about, what are you trying to do when you play with others? And it's kind of lost a little bit unless you think about it in the phrasing. So if I'm thinking, I want to make the other musicians sound great, in order to do that, I've got to have in my mind an idea of what actually does it mean for them to sound great. And this is a bit more important than you might think. It's amazing how many musicians kind of just jump into playing stuff with no particular plan. They're just kind of focused on, can I do it correctly? Can I get the right notes? They haven't really thought through, well, what's the bigger idea of what I'm trying to do here? So if your mantra as you go into a playing situation is, I want to make the other musicians sound great, you are being forced to think a little bit about, what does that mean? Does it mean that I am totally locked in with them rhythmically, so the whole thing has that really solid rhythm? Does it mean that actually I'm finding the exact right dynamic level to play at so that their parts can come through? All those sorts of things. You're having to think about what would make a great performance overall and your role in it. And so just by giving yourself that prompt all the time, you are automatically making sure you go in with some sort of a plan, even if it's not amazingly thought out, rather than just jumping in there and your only thought is, how can I not make mistakes? How can I play the right notes? All that sort of thing. So I find that just a really nice, easy way of getting into it and making sure that you've got a whole load of different elements of a great performance in there. Because we're thinking big picture. We're thinking about what it takes for something to sound great. We're making sure we're not getting overly focused on ourselves, which is good for the music and also good for our enjoyment. So there's so much here in this little phrase. It's very easy to remind yourself of. My job is to make the other musicians sound great. Try it. I think you'll really find that it helps your performing with others. And if you'd like some other great tips on what makes just really fantastic music, check out my video on Thelonious Monk's advice for musicians next. And if you'd like the special practice and performance tips that I only share with subscribers, then head on over to playinthezone.com and sign up for the emails. They're free. I've been Morley-Fletcher. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.